Late night, late night, late night. Late night readings. Rapid fire. Three very different, very admonishing topics. And I hope you can hear me okay. I actually do have a microphone coming in the mail, so that should be able to help with some of the volume issues. I feel like it could be my computer, it's just very quiet. But also my voice is very quiet. But I'll lean in here. We're going to discuss laziness. I didn't want to talk about this on Sunday because that is the day of laziness and of rest. And this topic is not to get confused with rest. This is something important. But I figured now that we are coming up into Wednesday, it would be a good time to talk about what we can do to combat this feeling. So, I did want to define laziness, but let's go ahead and do that afterwards. Let's go ahead and start with Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 through 11. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in the summer and gathers food at harvest. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. Wow. And that is very admonishing, to say the least. I think sometimes it's really hard to get through some of these days um, not doing anything, right? And just being tired or being lazy or something like that. It's a challenging thing to overcome, and I take it quite personally. There could be a multitude of reasons for that feeling, but hopefully after this reading we can get to the root of what that is. And go ahead and let your mind wander while I read these out. We're going to go to Proverbs chapter 10, verses 4 through 5. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands brings wealth. He who gathers crops in the summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during the harvest is a disgraceful son. So this is also something we've heard before, definitely. Let's go on to Ephesians chapter 5, 15 through 16. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most out of every opportunity, because the days are evil. And that is something that I came up on. I read a little pamphlet that people actually leave in the bus station where I go to work. So there was a pamphlet on to whom does the world belong to, or to whom controls the world, or who controls the world. And it actually mentioned that the devil is the one that controls the earth, like in a sense of control, right? So we talked about how God doesn't necessarily have the control. It is actually the evil forces that have the control on this planet. So people who might seem like they're making the most out of opportunity might just be falling into certain traps that are there to either waste energy or take up your time, which can then lead to laziness, correct? That's something I fall victim to a lot, thinking, oh, this is a great opportunity, and then puts me out on my butt. So let's go on to Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 through 13. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out of your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and act in order to fulfill his good purpose. So yes, God is working within you. He is actually the grunt power and the awesomeness behind all of your good actions and all of your hard work. He actually is taking the most of that effort for you. So you really, when you align yourself with the Lord, you don't really have to put in too much effort. It kind of just goes one after the next. Your days, your minutes, your hours follows and flows very, very smoothly. So that is something when walking with the Lord, He takes up a lot of that burden. Let's go on to Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 11 through 12. Okay. And to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, you should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, and so that you will not be dependent on anybody. Very, very valid and true. It's always good to be doing something, just an occupation, right? Something to occupy your hands, occupy your mind, just keep you busy at all times, because when the evening comes, it is time for rest. That is correct. Let's go on to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 verses 6 through 15. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, we command you, brothers and sisters, to keep away from every believer who is idle and disruptive and does not live according to the teaching you received from us. For you yourselves know how you ought to follow our example. We were not idle when we were with you, nor did we eat anyone's food without paying for it. On the contrary, we worked night and day, laboring and toiling so that we would not be a burden to any of you. We did this not because we do not have the right to such help. But in order to offer ourselves as a model for you to imitate. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule: the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. And as for you, brothers and sisters, never tire of what is doing what is good. Take special note of anyone who does not obey our instruction in this letter. Do not associate with them, in order that they may feel ashamed. Yet do not regard them as an enemy, but warn them as you would a fellow believer. So that last part there is actually very important. We are not to shun, we are not to exclude, and we are not to we are not to fight, and we are not to quarrel, right? Just to go back to our last topics there. To anyone who is living maybe in a contra way, in a way that maybe we aren't familiar with, and we're not to treat them as an enemy. I think they framed this really accurately. We're not to treat them as an enemy, but we may not associate the way that we would normally associate with others, in order that they may feel ashamed. And it's not like we want to intentionally shame those who are living on this contra path. We definitely just, keep your distance and protect your energy that you use for the work that you're doing. I think that's very, very valid and not so much of a problem. So, yes. Work is important. I think people are so opposed, to feeling like they're working hard or having work feel like work. We always want it to be fun and exciting, but, it definitely does take a lot of time and effort. Really anything that we are doing in this modern age, even if it's social media and stuff like that, being an influencer, that takes a lot of dedication and time, a lot of rapid thumb movements, really a lot of things that do qualify as work nowadays is really quite rigorous. I know a lot of things, a lot of occupations in the prior days were maybe more exerting. I can't talk, you guys, it's very late, I'm tired. You know what I'm trying to say. More, used more energy exertion, right? More of that physicality, right? Required more physicality. But that doesn't mean that it was any different than really what we're doing now, because we're just using more of our maybe mental strength more than anything. But yes, tedious, tedious, tedious. So this is just something to take note on. I know that everybody who follows me work very, very hard. Everybody that interacts with me. So this isn't really to call anyone out, but I think it's just a good time to reflect within yourself and everything. I think in reality, why I do these readings and why I read them to you guys is just to reflect on myself, really, because I do rewatch these and I do think about every time when I'm reading and transcribing these, I do apply these to myself often, often, to be able to lead by example and to be able to make sure that everything that I'm doing is in accordance with what is being said. And yes, of course, we all make mistakes. I have many, many times where I feel completely lazy and completely useless, but it is okay because we grow and we learn from there. So I'm going to move on to, I think we're going to cover two more topics this evening. We're going to move on right over to lust, the most exciting one, I think. So we're going to read about lust and then we're going to go into anger. So, deep, dark topics. Hopefully, you guys enjoy watching these in the morning. I will catch you in a second for lust.